You are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of June 2nd, 2025. A tremendous number of events have taken place today, so let's get started. Let's move to the line of contact, starting with the Sumy direction, where the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue their offensive. Over the past 24 hours, the map has changed once again. As you can see, Russian units have advanced right up to the settlement of Constantinovka. Sources also report that the entire village has come under the control of Russian forces. This information was published today by both pro-Russian and neutral sources. There are also footage of objective control from the northern part of the settlement of Andreevka. Just yesterday, we had reports of Russian forces approaching the settlement. Today, we already have objective control footage showing Ukrainian FPV drone operators striking Russian forward positions on the northern outskirts of this settlement. Based on this footage, map adjustments have been made by nearly all cartographers. So this is another axis of advance along which the Russian army is now progressing. Information is also coming in about the full clearance of the settlement of Novo-Mikhailovka. Russian units are attacking here from the northwest. Additionally, the first objective control footage has appeared, confirming the presence of Russian forces between the settlements of Lokhnya and Yunakivka. Again, at this point, we see an FPV drone strike on a tree line located just east of Yunakivka. Based on this footage, the map was also updated. So to summarize, we see that the Russian side is not slowing down its offensive. Moreover, yesterday's attacks on railway bridges and roads in the Bryansk region had almost no impact on the supply of Russian forces in this sector. The map you see now is from the evening of June 1st, 2025. This current map reflects the situation as of June 2nd, showing the advance toward Andreevka, as well as the alignment of the front line near Belovody, Yunakovka, and Yablunovka, and again about logistics. Today, footage was published showing that the first trains are already moving along railway tracks that were considered impassable just yesterday. This means logistics have been restored and ammunition and supplies are once again being transported towards Sumy region and the Sumy border area. The Russian army does not plan to stop or slow down the pace of its offensive, and considering what happened yesterday between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, there is a very high probability that the Russian army does not intend to pause its actions anytime soon. Next, we move to the Vulchansk sector of the front, in the Kharkov direction. Today, there are also some minor changes here. According to several cartographers, the Russian army has managed to slightly improve its presence in the northern part of Vulchansk. Yesterday, the map looked like this. A few small neighborhoods or blocks came under Russian control. Then we move to the Kupiansk sector of the front, starting with the southern Kupiansk direction, also known as the Liman direction. Today, some very important updates appeared, and as you can see, we have completely recolored the territory west and southwest of the settlement of Redkadub. To be more specific, the Russian army managed to achieve something unexpected. Honestly, I did not anticipate such progress. In my understanding, the Russian army had planned to reach the Nitris River and then begin moving south toward the settlement of Shandry-Halov. However, Russian units crossed the Nitris River and are now attempting to gain a foothold on the Ukrainian side, in the western part of the village of Karpovka. At least, that's what today's objective control footage, published by the Ukrainian side, indicates. Here we can observe FPV drone strikes on Russian positions at this part of the front. Several buildings were destroyed as a result of drone attacks. These buildings were geolocated in Karpovka. One of the strikes hit this spot. Another Ukrainian FPV drone strike hit this location, these farm buildings. Based on this footage, the map has also been updated. So overall, the Russian side has reached the Nitris River. At this point, it's difficult to say what will happen next. Perhaps the Russian army will indeed move further west toward Vovchi Yar in an attempt to divide this direction into several segments. Or perhaps the Russian side will try to entrench along the Nitris River on the Ukrainian side, but still continue moving south toward Lyman. In any case, this particular trap has now closed. The positions between the two rivers, the Nitris River and the river called Zherebets, are now fully under Russian control, at least in the northern part. The possibilities for counterattacks or flanking maneuvers by the Ukrainian armed forces are now limited, constrained by the Nitrius River and a vast network of various reservoirs, making counterattacks extremely difficult. Attacking from the north will also be hard, since there are numerous strongholds that were previously under Ukrainian control, but were abandoned by the Ukrainian army during the Russian offensive. We await the coming days, which will be decisive. Then it will become clearer in which direction the Russian army is planning to move next. Next, we move to the Constantinovka direction. Today, reports continue to emerge of Russian advances in the southern part of the town of Chasiv Yar. According to some experts, Russian units have managed to make progress in the Shevchenko residential area and have improved their positions near workshop number 2. We are not updating the map yet, awaiting additional geolocations or confirmation from other reliable sources, including neutral or pro-Ukrainian ones. Once we have that, the map will of course be updated. In any case, we see that bit by bit, the map updates are approaching the borders of the town itself, and it's possible that in the near future, the Russian Ministry of Defense will announce the full clearing of Chasiv Yar. At the same time, according to some cartographers, the Russian army has begun moving northward to straighten the front line along the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbass Canal. The attack is advancing towards settlements such as Maisky and Markove. We can also expect an attempt to cross the canal from the area of Hrihorivka toward Markove, Novomarkove and Maisky. Here, the Russian side will likely attempt to expand its presence along the canal on the Ukrainian side in the near future, in order to accumulate more forces and critical mass for a possible further advance to the west. Next, we move toward the Kleban-Baik Reservoir and the Kleban-Baik Pocket. The most important news today comes from the village of Zarya. Last night, pro-Russian experts and sources published these images of visual confirmation. Here we can observe several Russian servicemen raising flags in different parts of the village of Zarya. One flag was raised in the central area and another in the southeastern part. Based on these visual confirmation images showing Russian soldiers, we updated the map. It is worth noting that all map adjustments were consistent with the ones we already had yesterday. Here's what the map looked like yesterday. All of these territories were considered contested based on publications from various sources. And today, Russian presence in this area has been confirmed. However, the Ministry of Defense has not officially declared full control over the village. Apparently, Ukrainian formations are still present on farms in the northern part and on 2 small streets in the northwest of Zarya. There remains localized resistance. Some cartographers have already updated the map to reflect this. So in any case, it's likely that in the coming days, the Russian Ministry of Defense will confirm control over this settlement, and then the Russian army will gradually begin to advance northward towards settlements such as Oleksandra Kalinova, Yablunivka, Katarinivka, and Kleban-Baik. At the same time, the Russian army continues its offensive toward Yablunivka from the west. There is visual confirmation proving the Russian presence in this stronghold, a fairly fortified one. We also have footage confirming FPV drone strikes on Ukrainian units in the western part. So the assault is ongoing and active. The Ukrainian side is putting up fierce resistance, and heavy fighting continues, but the Russian army is slowly advancing. We await further map updates. Next, we move to the Novoekonomichny direction. There is a small update near Shevchenko-Pershe. This information was published today by neutral cartographers. The progress is minor, but overall we can see that the situation in this area has stabilized. Despite the Russian army's intensive offensive here about 3 weeks ago, the Ukrainian side has redeployed a significant number of units here, and it appears the front line, at least along the H-32 highway, has been temporarily or partially stabilized. The Russian side is not currently pushing forward towards settlements like Mykolaievka, Novoekonomichne or Novotoretske. The line has halted along anti-tank ditches just off the H-32 highway, and it seems the Russian army is not planning to advance further at high speed for now. Next, we head to the southern Donetsk direction. Fighting continues for the territory of Kamyane and Fedorivka. The Russian side is actively targeting Ukrainian positions in these 2 settlements using both tube and rocket artillery. Strikes are being carried out continuously, and Russian units are gradually advancing along forest belts. However, it's still too early to talk about a full-scale offensive in this sector. On the Zaporizhzhia front, General Syrsky's recent statements remain unconfirmed. He claimed a few days ago that in addition to the offensives on the Sumy, Pokrovsk and Constantinovka axes, the Russian army had also begun an advance in Zaporizhzhia. However, 2 to 3 days have passed, and we have not received a single piece of visual evidence confirming any progress in this direction. Also today, or rather over the past 24 hours, visual confirmation emerged from the area of the city of Dnipro. We can see a tent camp and what appear to be activities conducted by the armed forces of Ukraine, possibly preparing soldiers for deployment to the front. During reconnaissance, this camp was discovered and subsequently struck with both cluster munitions and Iskander missiles. Following this incident, the commander of Ukraine's ground forces was forced to resign. No specific losses have been officially reported by Ukraine, but some sources claim that the strike killed at least 75 Ukrainian servicemen. And that's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and take care.